Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Masters of the Universe, the film, the movie, the Dolph Lundgren thing. So, this film really, I was just kind of fascinated to just kind of tip my toes into the He-Man thing of things because I know and or realize that Kevin Smith is to eventually come out with He-Man on Netflix, and that might intrigue people to revisit all kinds of other He-Man stuff retroactively. And eventually, some people might stumble upon this goofy movie because it's free on YouTube, or you can also find it on Tubi, or just any number of movie apps that I've dare in fact mentioned, and any number of any other things that I've done. This film is kind of goofy, honestly. Like, it has a weird approach to it. But, I just wanted to go into just kind of dip my toes into the He-Man world of things. When also looking at movies like Ghostbusters 2, where both Ray and Winston go into a birthday party, and the kids end up getting disappointed because I thought it was going to be He-Man. Hey, yeah, He-Man, He-Man. Really, when memorizing that line and knowing that movie, hearing about He-Man from that, never really fully fledgedly 100%ingly going into He-Man and remembering anything about it. Like, I really wanted to try to go in here now and later in the game to figure out He-Man. Like, a lot of people might actually have different kinds of characters that popped out around that same time that they might enjoy more. Like, some people are like, hey, nah, whatever with He-Man, I'm much more of a Thundercats person, or I'm much more of a Lion-O person, or I'm much more of a so-and-so character that came out around that same time. And, some people have all kinds of flavors and tastes of things that probably came out around this same time. So, but I just wanted to dip my toes into He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Really, here's the thing that I always did not quite understand. I didn't actually understand what Grayskull actually was. And so when watching this movie, I got to kind of understand what that actually was. I guess Grayskull is actually just a power of sorts that is to eventually get obtained. I just naturally assumed that Skeletor was Grayskull. That's just what I thought it was. I just thought, oh, it's a different name from this same character. I don't know why this person has two different names. Or I'd call this character one or the other because I didn't know any different. Because I didn't know much about He-Man. So I went in this movie and finally understood some things and really just started to just kind of enjoy this bizarrish journey that this movie goes into. If some people have ever went into the original Beastmaster movies, or because eventually I think Beastmaster did have a show along with it. Eventually, somewhere down the line in one of those Beastmaster movies, we have Beastmaster who goes from his bizarrish fairy tale-ish world to modern day Earth, and then Beastmaster has to fight off his villain via modern day Earth. So while watching this movie, I kind of got a decent kick out of it just because of remembering that Beastmaster movie. But for me, this is just an oddball film. I wouldn't say that I went out of my way to thoroughly. I was like, oh wow, this movie is just awesome. This movie is great. I think anybody going into this could get to understand some stuff about He-Man, but I think that's a bulk of what is really going to come out of this film is to okay, you can maybe understand some of the characters a little bit more than if you have no knowledge of this at all, which technically I barely did. But yeah, with that, like basically, let's go into spoilers about this movie. Let's go and do that double five time territory. Because yeah, this is just a bizarre film, and eventually we'll go into its bizarre review. Because it like transitions from mostly being in modern day Earth. Uh, so it's just like, huh? Like, so most of this movie is not going to be in He-Man world. Most of it's going to be outside of it. Okay, goofy enough. Like I don't know. Like for me, like there is this kind of like give and take about this movie, where I was just like, goofy premise, goofy concept, but like the overall thing was understanding a little bit more of He-Man stuff that I didn't understand before. So that's really the buy-in for this thing. But it's not a. I wouldn't say that it's a good quality film. Like I wouldn't say that it's like, oh man, like this was an event. Oh, I like to me, I'm just like, like it was something to watch. So it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we to spoil this movie because I would just say it was a movie to watch. Like it's just like I wouldn't say that it's an okay film, like a solid okay film, like I normally would. I would just say it's just like if you have nothing better to do, watch this film. But if you cannot find any other He-Man content and you're on YouTube and it's a movie that's still for free, then watch it so you can understand some He-Man stuff. But I wouldn't probably recommend this be the very first He-Man thing you ever watch. More than likely, I'd recommend you eventually probably going to an app called Fox HD Movies and maybe go and rewatch some of the older He-Man stuff or He-Man in the Masters of the Universe and kind of just have fun in that world. But yeah, that said, I think it's that coveted time. Let's get into spoilers. So, Skeletor is to have the Sorcerer of Castle Grayskull with her, and it seems that throughout this movie she is slowly but surely withering away. And so He-Man and Teela and the Man of Arms, who all these people now have like laser guns, which I was kind of like thrown off by that. I was like, huh? Laser guns? But like, is that the way that they did it in the original He-Man thing? I don't know. I'll have to check out the original like source material and see if it's laser guns, or like I'll just wait till the Kevin Smith thing comes out and I'll watch the heck out of that because thumbs up. I'm excited about that. It looks visually really interesting, so I can't wait for that to come out. I'll definitely review that. So, and probably more than likely that might get reviewed somewhere around the same time that this will go out as well because it's a smart way of doing things. So, so He-Man, Teela, Man of Arms are trying to rescue the Sorceress of Castle Grayskull, and we have them like fighting off Skeletor's men outside this castle to try to make it inside this castle. And while they are fighting off all these men, they eventually find a guy named Gwildor, or yeah, I'm assuming Gwildor. Gwildor is a inventor and a locksmith, and he's this like smaller ash like creature, and he is the guy who is to have made the cosmic key for Skeletor to be able to go into any part of anywhere fairly quickly, because He-Man, Teela, and Man of Arms were kind of caught off guard by these soldiers coming at them and attacking them, And so now He-Man and his people understand why, because Glidor gave Skeletor this cosmic key for him to be able to pop into anywhere. So Glidor, I'm probably gonna ill pronounce that, so apologies. Glidor takes He-Man and his people to his home to showcase that Glidor had made another cosmic key. So this whole group goes to the castle Grayskull to try to rescue the sorcerer, but the only problem is that they went into the lion's den and now they are outnumbered. So we have them trying to fight off Skeletor and his men, but they just start to get massively outnumbered. He-Man is desperately trying to rescue the sorceress, but like they are just outnumbered and they are pinned down. So we have the Man-at-Arms telling Glidor, like, dude, we need to get out of here. You need to get us to a place of safety. And Glidor is like, where? And the Man-at-Arms is like, anywhere. So Glidor eventually hits random things together to have He-Man, Teela, and Man-at-Arms going into this going into modern day Earth, or what is to be modern day for this time period. So we of course have these people that don't understand this world. We have Courtney Cox, who's to play Julie Winston. Julie is to have worked at this chicken joint, and it seems that she is to leave this chicken joint to go and move away because both of her parents had been killed off. So Julie is going to leave and travel where she has other family, which is kind of sad. So Julie goes off to be with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend evidently is a keyboardist for some band. Julie gives Kevin this bowl of chicken, I guess, for them to have a different variety than they are probably used to. More than likely, that probably means they've been probably having chicken from this spot forever, because recently Kevin is completely disinterested with eating any of this chicken, but it's probably going to be for the fairly last time. So Kevin asks Julie if she's interested to come with him at least to go to his sound check, and Julie is like, well, I actually have a plane to catch eventually sometime tonight. And Kevin is like, well, can't you delay it? Like, can't you stay later? Like, and Julie's like, well, I've made up my mind. And so Kevin is like, okay, fine. Like, that's okay. So Julie, I'm trying to get all this right. Because so He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela all arrive on this Earth to eventually realize that the cosmic key is not with them. So they are to eventually try and track this thing down and figure out where it is. Like, it's kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, where the Ninja Turtles time travel, and then Michelangelo ends up with the scepter, and The rest of the turtles then have to find Michelangelo, and then after that, once they find him, they still have to find where the heck the scepter is, so that way they can get back into modern time and not have to fight all of the daimyo's men and all those people. I don't know why I remember any part of any details of that movie, because that movie is goofy. But if anything, like, when honestly looking at it, I like that film. Like, it's like, if anything, like, it's an okay movie. It's People will say that it's god awful and it's a waste to watch. Like, to me, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, it's another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action movie. How very few times are we gonna get that? If anything, I even liked a bunch of the live action shows that they put together, like the Ninja Turtles, the Next Mutation thing. I actually liked that. That was a fun show. So, moving back on to my point here. So, Tila and Men of Arms are like desperately hungry, and so Guidor eventually has this contraption that is some kind of uh, like uh, crane grabber thing that has like a string on it. So I'm gonna call this thing uh, the grabber, the grabber device. I'll just call it the grabber. People will understand what that means when I keep talking about it. So Guidor sees that there's a bucket of chicken in somebody's back seat. So Guidor goes and uses this hook device, grabs the bucket of chicken, and retrieves it. And so, like, Tila and Men at Arms are hey man, like, were you just gonna were you just gonna eat all that? Like, was that just for you? And Guido was like, no, I'm gonna share. Like, I was gonna share. Maybe I'll keep it for myself. Oh, you people, I'm outie. No, he shares, and all of a sudden we have Tila, who is to start eating this chicken. Is like, wow, this food is interesting. Like, I've never seen this kind of thing before. And Men of Arms tells Tila, well, you know where this comes from, right? It comes from an animal. And Tila's like, like, I have no interest eating this then. Phooey. Like, maybe Tila is a vegetarian? I don't know. But maybe she also doesn't trust the earth food. I don't know. She doesn't trust a bowl of chicken? Whatever. Be gone with her. Anyways, so Kevin and Julie are to eventually spot a bizarre-looking device, and we have Kevin, who immediately assumes it's some Japanese synthesizer and starts to play around with it. And he's like, wow, this seems very different than like most musical things that I've seen. Like, why would just this Japanese synthesizer just be dumped in the middle of the woods somewhere? Doesn't quite make any sense to me, but it is what it is, I guess. And Kevin is consistently playing around with this thing, and he loves it, to the point of him wanting to take this thing to a music shop owner and ask what he thinks it is. And the music shop owner, who is actually Barry, is to mention the same thing, that it's some Japanese synthesizer, but like, Kevin doesn't think that that's correct. Like, there has to be some other kind of explanation for all this, because it looks way different than he's ever seen. So, give me a second here. So Kevin takes this to this musician shop to see what it is, and they can't come up with a clear consensus. Kevin takes it to this dance that he is to do a sound check for. And Julie's like, you know what, it's going to be so weird to be at this dance, because, like, I'm leaving, and so, like, I'm leaving everybody all behind kind of thing, and so I'm moving on somewhere else. So Skeletor is to go and have a bunch of men being sent out to try and find the cosmic key, but to also try to prevent He-Man from getting this cosmic key, or to take it from He-Man, so the odds aren't forever in equal favor, and it's more into uh, Skeletor's favor. So Skeletor goes and plops out Beastman, Karg, General Blade, Sarad, and I think that probably covers a bulk of who they send. Oh, and also they send Evelyn or Evelyn. I'm probably ill pronouncing it, but it's okay. Cool beans. Like I didn't know if Beastman was actually a villain or not, so I kind of thought it was odd. Like I was a thinking. It's me, a Mario. I was thinking that Beastman was actually a hero, but I guess he's a villain. I don't know. I don't know much about He-Man. That's obvious through this review. So Skeletor sends these men out, and so these villains are to arrive at this dance and kill the janitor that is in this school, but they are to go to this dance to find both Julie and Kevin and try to find where the cosmic key is. So when they are to arrive at this spot and try to get the cosmic key away from Julie, Julie is to run out of this dance and run into the back alley of this school, where there seems to be a bunch of like cardboard bales or cardboard, like a lot of bales, a lot of like this is obviously just kind of like the not so cool looking back part of this school, where there's like just a bunch of like stuff just stacked around, like wooden pallets and stuff like that I've seen through doing retail and stuff like that. So Julie is to immediately bump into He-Man, and He-Man is going and trying to protect Julie, giving her a laser weapon and trying to then try and take down some of these men. And so eventually He-Man is to make his way through these men and get Julie to the other He-Man-ish like people, so Julie can understand better what is going on here. And I think I messed something up, because what had happened is that Kevin actually has the cosmic key. Julie knows that it exists, and so Julie is talking to He-Man about it, and Kevin had gone off to eventually, I think, go on to somewhere to, and I don't remember where exactly. Who did it? So, pushing on. So, man, I am tongue tied right here. Julie is to go with He-Man and his people, and they're to give them the layout of what this thing actually is, that it's a cosmic key. And if really He-Man isn't already looking for it, then so is Skeletor's men. And when He-Man is to escape, we have Evelyn that is to try and figure out how Sarod and General Blade and all these people were to get defeated. Sarad mentions that they were outnumbered, and Evelyn has this one device that is to replay what had all happened. And Evelyn says, well, you guys weren't outnumbered, you were just, I guess, outclassed. So, Skeletor is to go back, or the Skeletor men is to go back to see Skeletor, and Skeletor is to kill Sarad because of their stupidity. And Skeletor is almost tempted to kill all of these people off, but Beastman is to kind of like plead for his life, and so like Skeletor is like, well, I'm gonna give you guys one last chance, and hopefully you guys get this right this time around. So, uh, so, uh, Evelyn and all the people are to go back onto Earth to try to find this cosmic key. Uh, Kevin is to eventually land himself into, I think, just kind of going home, and we have this detective Lubick, who eventually finds Kevin and eventually wants to take the cosmic key away from him as evidence to what had happened at the dance. Uh, because both Kevin and Julie were the last people supposedly there at that time. So, Detective Lubick is to take the cosmic key away from Kevin, and because Kevin was at home getting like something, uh, because also Kevin like replayed this device, and like he did not understand what was going on with it. So I think he went back to the music shop to try and help understand what exactly this thing does, because something like this should not be doing this. So when Kevin is to eventually be stopped by this detective and eventually take the cosmic key away from him, the detective goes back into this music shop to see what the heck that this is, which eventually has He-Man and all of their people make their way to this music shop as well to retrieve the cosmic key from this detective. So we have Skeletor and his men also making their way to this music shop. And so now there is this gigantic fight out in this music shop between Skeletor's men and He-Man's men. And there's this huge fight out. Detective Lubick is in the back of this shop, and we have Barry mentioned that like there must be this like invasion of the body snatchers things going on with this whole thing. That if anything, there's some invasion going on here. And like Detective Lubick is like, well, yeah, there's a war zone going on here. That's what really is going on. Because every time they are to open the door to see what's going on, there's just lasers everywhere, and Lubick is losing his mind because of all the war that is going on here. So Julie is to be back in this back part of this store as well with Kevin. So we all of a sudden see Julie looking out the window to see her mother is seemingly back alive. Julie runs out to hug her mother and like, oh my god, Mom, you're still alive. Uh, and Julie's mom is like, yes, I am, child. And you know what? Me and your father need the device that you and your friends have. We need it to help us. So Julie goes back, grabs the cosmic key, and gives it to her mother, and her mother turns into Evelyn and takes the key with her, and like they realize this, but it's far too late. So now that Evelyn has the cosmic key, basically there is nothing to stop Skeletor. So we have He-Man and his men now trying to scramble to get this key back, and like that's when we have all these cool action sequences and He-Man like trying to use Skeletor's men's things against him. Like eventually He-Man gets onto this like hoverboard-ish like thing and tries to fight out with like swords against these guys with lasers. It's kind of cool and interesting. uh, Skeletor comes and teleports to this Earth and has this big, gigantic, uh, like throne slash vehicle thing that he's flying in on. It looks pretty cool. So He-Man eventually gets the cosmic key away from these people, but the only problem is that Skeletor is to eventually electrify the cosmic key so that way it does not work, because there are some keys of this cosmic key that have already been programmed, and now their way home is not actually one of them. So Skeletor goes back to He-Man's world to become the master of the universe because He-Man no longer lives in that universe. So Skeletor becomes a much more powerful being. The sorceress is about to croak, and so Skeletor is to just become this massive gold-esque like character that has all this like cool looking gold on him, and it looks pretty awesome. Like it looks kind of like a Japanese style kind of like character, but like he looks like he has the full power of Grayskull on him, and it looks actually pretty cool. So like I could like I'm kind of curious like how much all that stuff weighed, and like how like hefty it was, because I'm thinking that like dude, that probably like sucked to have all that crap on, as well as all that makeup. Like I'm sure it was just like a horrific process, and plus also, like I think sometimes for Grayskull, it seems like the mouth was like good, but then sometimes you can kind of tell it's like Godzilla style sometimes, where he's like ah 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 ah, and like he has to say lines afterwards. It's kind of weird. Like I don't know what's going on there. Maybe they realized that it like what he was trying to say like didn't work out that well, so they went back and tried to fix it, because maybe there was some things going on with all the crap that that guy was holding on to. So uh so really He-Man and all those people are just immediately assuming that they are trapped on this earth, this modern earth forever, and that there's no way home. They still have the skeleton key, it works, but there's no programmable option for them to figure out how to get back home. Kevin is to realize that, hey, like, I actually remember all of the notes and tones of your homeworld. Because if anything, like, as soon as I play something once or twice, I immediately memorize it. And Kevin starts playing the exact tones, like trying to hum all of it. And Glidor is like, "Oh my god, how did you memorize that?" And Kevin was mentioning, "Well, yeah, I also wanted to use it in one of like a song or something." And so, like, they're like, "Okay, great. Well, Glidor needs like a couple of pieces that he takes from Teela and the Men of Arms, and he also needs a keyboard, which Kevin gets. So they go and they put all of these pieces together to teleport themselves all back to He-Man's world. Even Julie and Kevin are in He-Man's world now. So we have He-Man and all of his people fighting Skeletor off. Mostly it's just Man of Arms and Teela, but still. Like, at some point we have Teela who is to name herself as the Woman of Arms, which I think was kind of cool. But anyways, so He-Man eventually is to... oh, no, wait. He-Man is already with Skeletor. Aha. I forgot about that. So He-Man was taken back to his world to be tortured and whipped and whatever because He-Man had to make a bargain with Skeletor to not hurt, I think, uh, like Julie or someone. And so He-Man said, "Well, to I will go back to the castle of Grayskull and be tortured and beaten and until I am to be rescued by my other people." So we have He-Man who's just getting whipped and getting beaten up, and to the point of Skeletor realizing, dude, I have all the power. Like, Skeletor even has He-Man's sword that that he has off to the side there. Is like, yeah, I'm beating everybody. So He-Man is to have his friends come back, and so He-Man feels a lot stronger to be able to beat through a lot of these people and run and try to get his blade to yell out, "I have the power!" And then He-Man's up to try and take down Skeletor, even with his goldish like armor. He-Man still knocks him down and takes him down. Uh, so we start to have He-Man and his people start to take down Skeletor and beat them down and eventually just win. So this all leads to have He-Man and his people all, I guess, really just own the Castle Grayskull because they had just beaten Skeletor. And now, really, that's why He-Man is to be actually the master of the universe. And so the sorceress is now back to full strength and is able to now not be stuck in in the the force field Esh like thing that she was stuck with Skeletor, because they were trying to rescue her and she was locked in this spot, and the then rescue her, and so now she is perfectly fine. And since He-Man has the power, the sorceress is back to full strength and everything is all good. Everything is all chicken babies. So since He-Man and his people had won, now basically everyone has all kind of different outfits on, and like He-Man now, instead of having his like silverish, like kind of rusty like outfit, all of a sudden he has like this gold outfit and it looks all cool and nice. Everybody has different kind of color outfits that make them either look more shiny or much more cooler. You say, hey, after we won, we just actually bedazzled all our clothes or whatever. We made them actually look much more cleaner than what they were before. So we really, after the whole beating down of Skeletor, all we have to do now is send back both Harry and Julie to their own time, or to their own Earth, I mean. But here's the thing. So Gleedor and people send Julie and Harry back, but we find out that Julie and Kevin had gone back some time in the past, where Julie is to tell her parents not to go on a plane to go anywhere because their plane had crashed. Supposedly, Julie's father was a very reliable plane pilot, but Julie's not taking the chance because she knows full well that their plane had crashed. So Julie takes the keys of her mother's and father's car so that way they don't go anywhere. And Julie keeps demanding that they go to the beach or they do something else. So Julie and Kevin are running into the streets into one another's arms to have. I guess Kevin realized that this is sometime in the past, so Kevin is telling Julie, "Hey, like this must have been on such and such day. Don't tell your parents to go out on that plane." And Julie's like, "No, I stopped them. Everything is fine." Here's the thing, though. So Julie was to mutter something to Guidor or Gildor. I'm probably gonna butcher that. So Julie mentioned something that I just didn't quite hear what she had said. But I'm assuming maybe she probably told him like, "Hey, can you send us back a day so I can prevent my parents from dying?" So evidently he did, and evidently that worked out to save Julie's parents from her death, because that is the reason why Julie had to move away. And so now that her parents are perfectly fine and alive, Julie can now stay with Kevin and live their lives forever as people who are now great and thumbs up and remember that time with He-Man. But yeah, what a weird kind of story, but at the end of the day, this is also free on YouTube, so people can watch it however they want. But it's also just free in a lot of spots, so if you have some time to kill, go and watch this He-Man movie. But with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here. If anything, there is probably one point that I was confused about. Also, Detective Lubick, he went back and is now like living with He-Man and his people, because really, like, Lubick is like, "Dude, like, this is basically a retirement for me. Like, I'm gonna live here now. Like, I have beautiful women kissing me, and like I don't have to shotgun through all of Skeletor's men like he had done during the fight of that, where like recently he was kind of hesitant about doing anything, but then all of a sudden lasers started to come to the fray of him, and he started just shotgunning through people. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, basically that covers this movie. If anything, there might have been some details here and there that I didn't further go into, but I also tried to rush to get this movie done because it's free on YouTube. More than likely, people might not want to hear the consensus of this movie. In all brutal honesty about this film, this is a movie that I honestly and truly just, like, hey, it was good to watch, but, like, I just don't care about it. Like, I don't care about this, like, for me, like, I love sword and sorcery, like, things, believe me, I love that kind of stuff. But for this movie, it's such a goofy approach, and really it doesn't really help me like He-Man and his world more. Like, it's basically just another one of those, like, hey, yeah, this movie is odd. It's a good thing I spent time watching this. But yeah, like, I think people might have loved this movie or really enjoyed it or watched it numerous times over. It might be their favorite film or whatever. So, like, for me, yeah, like, that's just my perspective. But really, I've watched a lot of other odd things. And I said that a lot of bizarre-ish movies were actually my favorite. But this one just didn't do it for me. It just didn't. So with that said, I'm going to just say that this movie was a watchable film if you don't have any time to. There's a lot of He-Man content out there. There's a lot of He-Man stuff to watch. So what might not be my jam for me watching this movie, maybe I can find a alternate He-Man content to enjoy otherwise. But when I am to probably record this and send this out onto the YouTube world, that is when the He-Man Kevin Smith show is going to drop. So I'm going to be doing this beforehand. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.